पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ रुपए का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस केवल 450 रुपए महीने से शुरू। वाव!
Very good morning. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Divya Vava. We're going to get you the top story as North India shivers, coldy and cool wave conditions continue to prevail.
Along with that, there's also a historic blizzard in the United States and almost 50 people have lost their lives. We'll get you all that and more. First, let's take a look at the headlines.
Almost 50 people have died in a colossal U.S. winter storm. 49 inches of snowfall recorded in Buffalo itself, and storm disruptions leave travelers stranded.
North India in the grip of cold wave and cold day conditions. Temperature at the season's lowest in North India, and in multiple states, fog conditions to continue for another 48 hours. Met Department says cold wave in Delhi will continue till December 28th.
Is India prepared for COVID? A mock drill that starts today.
In a shocking case, a border security force personnel was beaten to death in Gujarat's Nadiad after he protested against the circulation of an obscene video of his daughter.
Ukraine's President Zelensky calls Prime Minister Modi. The Prime Minister has conveyed India's support for any peace efforts in a call with the Ukrainian President. Reiterates the call for complete withdrawal of hostilities as far as Ukraine is concerned.
Our lead story is the colossal blizzard in the United States, and almost 50 people have lost their lives because of the falling temperatures and the rising winter in the United States. 27 people have been killed in just New York City's Buffalo. Now, the New York's governor warned that the danger from a massive blizzard is not over just yet, and communities near Buffalo are bracing for as much as additional foot of snow. And the temperatures are going as low as minus 36 degrees Fahrenheit.
Minus 40, Priyanshi, to be precise, and that is what the National Weather Service has recorded. In fact, 49 inches of snowfall in Buffalo itself, and officials have claimed that the storm has now claimed 27 deaths across the western New York state. Close to 50 people have died in the recent storm. Hundreds of flights have been delayed or cancelled, and this is on account of that storm. Thousands of people have been waiting at airports, and do remember, this is right after Christmas, which is when people are headed back home. It's the holiday season as far as the United States is concerned. So many travelers, they're stranded at the airports. They're either waiting to rebook their flights. Some of them have totally been cancelled.
That's right.
We're still in the throes of this very dangerous, life-threatening situation. Just because people might see the sky a little bit today, those storms, the wind, the velocity, the volume, it's coming back, and it's going to come back tonight.
Following Friday's bomb cyclone, wind chills are at minus 40 degrees Celsius in some parts of the US, with reports of frozen bodies being found inside cars in the middle of streets and trapped in houses. Over 36 people have died in this massive winter storm that continues to blast much of the US with brutal winter weather. Parts of western New York have been buried by up to 43 inches of snow, leaving vehicles stuck and thousands of homes and businesses without electricity. New York's governor says the situation is still life-threatening.
We're still in the throes of this very dangerous, life-threatening situation. Just because people might see the sky a little bit today, those storms, the wind, the velocity, the volume, it's coming back,
So travelers' weather woes are likely to continue, with hundreds of domestic and international flight cancellations this morning as well. Since the start of the monstrous Arctic storm, the number of outages has at times exceeded 1 million customers. Winter storm warnings remain in effect in New York for Buffalo, as 10 million people are under freeze alerts across the US even today. As per forecasters, a moderating trend should set in on Tuesday. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.
And it's not just the United States, but North India also is shivering here, whether it's Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi. All are in the grip of coldy and cold wave conditions. Also in parts of Himachal Pradesh and Rajasthan. Parts of Saurashtra and Kutch also, where the temperature is down by almost 3 to 4 degrees from what is usually the case this time of the year.
And Divya, the temperatures in the national capital were hovering around 5 to 6 degrees. The minimum temperatures during the night went to around 6 degrees. And this is due to the high moisture content and light wind in the lower levels. Fog conditions are also continuing in Delhi, Haryana, Chandigarh, and these are likely to continue for the next 48 hours. But in Punjab, the intensity and spread will continue through Friday, is what the Met Department is saying. Now, Vedant is joining us for more on this. Vedant, take us through the temperatures right now, and how much below normal are these temperatures, and how are the people of Delhi really coping with this temperature?
Well, Priyanshi, the maximum and minimum temperatures both are lowest for this season. The maximum temperature is almost 6 notches below normal, and the minimum temperature really 3 degrees below normal. It's not a very ideal time to be reporting, but you know, it's actually Delhi's homeless who are the worst hit. In fact, you've been reporting on that yourself, Priyanshi, and I come to you from a shelter home here in the national capital. Let me give you a sense from inside the shelter home, and this is maintained by the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board. And this time around, the Delhi government, in fact, has come up with at least 3 shelter homes in a particular area. So, you know, of course, these are the, in fact, you know, fortunate is not the right word, but these are the few people who have got places inside, you know, a shelter home. But there are even more unfortunate people who have not even found places inside a shelter home, and they continue to spend their nights in this biting cold outside these shelter homes. In fact, it is those people really who need to be heard at this point in time. And this particular shelter home is, you know, just outside Ames. And here, as you can see, Priyanshi, these people spending the night and the morning after here on the footpath. So let me just get in a sense from them, you know, as to what their predicament really is. Sir, आप लोग ये बताइए, अपना नाम बताइए सबसे पहले सर.
हमारा नाम पड़ेगा मैनुद्दीन.
ये बताइए, आप लोगों को यहाँ पर जो शेल्टर होम बने हुए हैं उसमें भी जगह नहीं मिली और आपको अपनी रात यहीं फुटपाथ पर बितानी पड़ी?
जगह और ना ही मिलते हैं, यहीं पर रात बिताते हैं लोग. हम लोग
हाँ.
बिहार के रहने वाले हैं.
हाँ. और क्या काम करते हैं आप लोग?
हम लोग कुछ नहीं है.
फ्रैक्चर हो गया है यहाँ पर हम लोग.
तो आप लोगों के लिए यहाँ पर बच्चों के साथ रहना बहुत मुश्किल है. ठंड में इतनी इस समय ठंड बढ़ती जा रही है.
तो यहीं पर हम लोग रहते हैं. हम लोग इलाज कराने के लिए आए हैं बिहार से. डॉक्टर डेट दे देता है तो 10 दिन का 15 दिन का रोड को झेलते हैं. उसके बाद फिर जहिया बुलाता है डॉक्टर तो अपने इलाज के लिए जाते हैं. रात में भी यहीं पर रहते हैं, दिन में भी यहीं पर रहते हैं.
Also, you know, more people here. सर, आप लोग बताइए कि यहाँ पर आप लोगों ने ट्राई किया कि जो ये शेल्टर बनाए हैं दिल्ली सरकार ने, इसमें जगह मिल जाए, इसके लिए आपने कोशिश करी, लेकिन आप लोगों को अपनी रात और मॉर्निंग यहीं बितानी पड़ी.
क्या जगह खाली नहीं है तो कैसे क्या होगा?
जगह खाली ही नहीं है उसमें.
बस बात खत्म.
आप लोग बताइए सर, यहाँ पर इतनी ठंड बढ़ रही है, दिन ब दिन बढ़ती जा रही है. इस समय लगभग 4 डिग्री तक गिर गया था टेम्परेचर. तो यहाँ पर फुटपाथ पर आपको बितानी पड़ती है अपनी रात, जगह नहीं.
मजबूरी है, क्या करें, मजबूरी है.
Right, so Priyanshi, of course, these people telling us that there's no space in shelter homes, so it's actually they're helpless and they're forced to spend their nights and mornings here on the footpaths of the national capital.
Right, Vedant, the Delhi government, of course, said that they had created hundreds of these shelters across the city. And of course, they're created and the conditions inside them are helping people. But the homeless say they're not enough because there are many more homeless people and they can't be, unfortunately, accommodated in these shelter homes. Let's also look at the minimum temperatures across India, Divya.
Yeah, Priyanshi, when you're talking about Delhi at 5 degrees, that's 3 degrees below the norm. But in Srinagar, that's minus 3.5. We have Shimla at 3.5. Then we have Jammu, which is obviously colder than Delhi. But Delhi is colder in Nainital. Nainital, the temperature is 7.2 degrees. Rajkot, which is 4 degrees off the mark, it's 10.2. So the temperatures are below the norm in many parts of the country. So it's not just North India, but also going down to Saurashtra and Kutch, where the temperature is below the norm.
Now from the cold wave, let's turn our attention to COVID-19. And today, India will hold a mock drill to check how well prepared our health infrastructure is to control, if at all, there is a COVID surge in the country. Remember, after the sort of unprecedented COVID surge in China, India is also on high alert. And health ministers of all states will participate in this mock drill today to check whether our health infrastructure is ready, if at all a surge hits us. Now, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia will also visit Delhi's Safdarjung Hospital at 9:45 a.m. to oversee this very mock drill.
The mock drills will focus on the availability of health facilities in all districts, the capacity of isolated beds that are needed in isolation, oxygen-supported beds, as well as intensive care unit beds and ventilator-supported beds, along with human resources as well. And to get more on this, we have Vedant joining us. Vedant, this mock drill that's going to take place, take us through, the aspects that they'll be covering besides the facilities that are going to be available at the hospital, especially in the isolation facilities.
That's right, Divya. So remember, the Health Ministry had issued a 6-point advisory to states, and of course it has directed states to conduct mock drills across health facilities. So of course, government hospitals, private hospitals, COVID care centres, mock drills have to be conducted across healthcare facilities. And here in the national capital also, the government-run hospitals will be conducting mock drills. Remember, various aspects will be covered. The primary among them is to ensure adequate availability of beds, making sure that there's an uninterrupted oxygen supply. That is something that the government has been focusing on. So liquid medical oxygen, oxygen cylinders, backup of oxygen plants, all of that has to be maintained by hospital, and inventory has to be maintained. And as far as today's drills are concerned, the hospitals are also likely to consider a major factor is that whether an onboarding of healthcare workers is required or not, because that is something that the centre has directed states to do, to assess if there are adequate number of healthcare workers, frontline workers, nurses, etc. So that is something that will be done by hospitals today. As you rightly mentioned, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia will be visiting Delhi's Safdarjung Hospital. In fact, state health ministers will also be making visits to government hospitals in their respective states. Remember, these are going to be held across states and union territories. Another important aspect to be considered is going to be the inventory of emergency medicines and general drugs. Now, that is something that the central government has directed states to do, to maintain a list of antibiotics, COVID-related medicines, life-saving equipment like, SpO2, BiPAPs, ventilators. So an inventory of all of that has to be maintained, and that is something that the hospitals are going to do today. Other than that, the hospitals are also likely to assess the situation as to how they are going to handle if a special case comes up. For example, if a pregnant woman with COVID comes, then what are the possible solutions that a hospital will be providing? How are healthcare workers going to be handling that particular case? So special cases are also something that hospitals are going to look at today. Remember, these drills are going to be held from 9 a.m. to approximately 3 to 4 p.m. In the evening, and Union Health Minister will be visiting Delhi Safdarjung Hospital.
Right, Vedant, thanks very much for joining us with those details. So those mock drills today to check whether India is really prepared. We'll get you the details from that as well. But for now, moving to the other big story, a border security force personnel was beaten to death in Gujarat's Nadiad after he protested against the circulation of an obscene video of his daughter. A police case has also been filed in this, Divya.
That's right, Priyanshi. Sources have said that the man had gone to the home of the 15-year-old who allegedly posted the video online, and then he was attacked by the family. Now, in a move that will likely raise a political storm, the Central Bureau of Investigation, or the CBI, has reopened a corruption case against former Chief Minister Lalu Prasad Yadav.
Now, this case was closed in 2021 when the CBI had said that there was no case that could be made out of this investigation. But now it's also politically important, Divya, as the case is reopened just months after the Bihar reversal, in which Yadav's party tied up with Nitish Kumar's Janata Dal United and formed the government.
As Lalu Prasad Yadav recovers from a kidney transplant in Singapore, there is fresh trouble for him and his son, Bihar's Deputy Chief Minister Tejaswi Yadav, his two daughters, Chanda and Ragini Yadav. The CBI has reopened the case 1 year after closing it, citing no wrongdoing.
हम लोग का सारा स्टेटमेंट ऑन रिकॉर्ड है। हम कई बार जाकर के हम ईडी हो सीबीआई हो अपना सवाल का जवाब जो है हम लोग रिकॉर्ड पे दे चुके हैं।
In 2021, CBI's investigating officer cited several irregularities. Senior officers in the agency said there are no strong grounds to register FIR. Sources say CBI has reopened the case based on investigation officer's report. In 2021, the CBI investigating officer cited several irregularities like antedated stamp papers, sham transactions, and property transfer in favor of Yadav's at a throwaway price. However, senior officers in the agency said there are no strong grounds to register FIR, so the case was closed. Now sources say the CBI has reopened the case to see whether a case or FIR can be registered based on the report of the investigating officer. The CBI director has the discretion to overrule opinions of other officers. The allegation is that the Lalu Yadav family received a prime property from a reality giant in return for a contract to redevelop, renovate for two prime railway properties in Mumbai and Delhi. The CBI claims the 30 crore property was sold for just 5 crores to a firm where Tejaswi Yadav and his two sisters were directors.
उनको यहाँ के बारे में जानकारी है ना, तो एक जिला के बारे में जानकारी होगा, बिहार के बारे में।
लालू यादव उनका परिवार जिस प्रकार से सरकारी धन का दुरुपयोग या सत्ता का दुरुपयोग करता रहा, उसी का परिणाम है उनकी पूरी जिंदगी जेल में कट गई जो है। इसलिए देखिए जैसा बोएगा वैसा वो पाएगा। तो बोया पेड़ बबूल का तो आम कहां से हो।
With Arvind Gunasekar, Bureau Report, NDTV.
And with that, we're slipping into a very short break. But on the other side, we'll get you details of that huge blanket drive for people who are in need at the moment.
That's right, Divya. While we sit indoors in our jackets, it's hard for us to even bear this biting cold in North India. We can only imagine how the homeless are coping.
About 60,000 blankets are needed, and you can donate them to the Uday Foundation. Welcome back. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi's visit to the Samadhi of former Prime Minister and BJP stalwart Atal Bihari Vajpayee as part of his Bharat Jodo Yatra sparked a row and a face-off between the BJP and the Congress.
Now, unconventional topic of discussion, Divya, there was that how is Rahul Gandhi wearing a T-shirt in the 6-degree temperature in the national capital? His attire, which was a T-shirt despite Delhi's biting cold, drew a lot of chatter. But his presence at Mr. Vajpayee's Samadhi sparked a row not only with the BJP, but also within his own party. In a now deleted tweet, the All India Congress Committee coordinator Gaurav Pandey attacked Mr. Vajpayee and the RSS, saying that the former Prime Minister Vajpayee played a crucial role in inciting riots.
And moving on, Karnataka Chief Minister Bommai was in Delhi to meet with Union Home Minister Amit Shah as the political focus shifts to the southern state. There are also some reports of possible cabinet expansion by filling 6 vacant posts, or a kind of a reshuffle by dropping a few and inducting an equal number of new faces.
And the way it comes at an interesting time when polls are due in Karnataka, and it's just about 4 months in which we could see elections in Karnataka. And there's also speculation of a possible shake-up in the state to overcome anti-incumbency. So this meet came amid all of those important elections and important concerns coming up in Karnataka politics.
ಇನ್ನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಾನ್ಷನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೂಡ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಡಿಟೇಲಾಗಿ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಶೀಘ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇವೆ ಅನ್ನೋಂಥ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿದರು. ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೆಷ್ಟು ರಿಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕಿದೆ, ಯಾವ ಸಮಾಜಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅತಿ ಶೀಘ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇವೆ ಅನ್ನೋಂಥ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಕೂಡ.
Moving on, the BJP Member of Parliament Pragya Thakur has done it again, and she has made a provocative statement, a hate speech yet again. She was speaking at an event in Karnataka's Shivamoga where she made a provocative comment.
That's right, Priyanshi. The Bhopal MP gave a call to Hindus to keep weapons to kill those indulging in so-called love jihad. She urged the gathering at least keep a sharp kitchen knife to cut the throats and the heads of those indulging in love jihad.
इसलिए लव जिहाद करने वालों को लव जिहाद जैसा उत्तर दो. अपनी लड़कियों को सुरक्षित रखो, अपनी लड़कियों को संस्कारित करो, अपने घर में हथियार रखो. कुछ नहीं तो सब्जी काटने वाला चाकू जरा तेज रखो. जब हमारा सब्जी अच्छे से कटेगी तो निश्चित रूप से दुश्मनों के मुंह भी और सिर भी अच्छे से कटेंगे.
Moving on, in a phone conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky on Monday, Prime Minister Modi strongly reiterated his call for an immediate cessation of hostilities between Ukraine and Russia. Said both sides should revert to dialogue and diplomacy to find a lasting solution to their differences.
That's what the Prime Minister said, and Zelensky in a tweet said that he counted on New Delhi's support for the implementation of his peace formula, which he had proposed on the G20 platform. He said that the leaders also exchanged views about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Prime Minister Narendra Modi strongly reiterated his call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and said that both sides should come back to dialogue. That's what the Prime Minister's office said in a statement. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he is not averse to negotiations, but it's only Ukraine that's refusing.
Я считаю, что мы действуем в правильном направлении. Мы защищаем свои национальные интересы, интересы наших граждан, наших людей, повторю еще раз. И другого выбора, кроме как защита наших граждан, у нас просто нет. Но мы готовы договариваться со всеми участниками этого процесса о приемлемых каких-то развязках. Но это их дело. Не мы же отказываемся от переговоров, а они.
Now, Zelensky also spoke about that peace plan in that conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But what really is Ukraine's peace plan? Ukraine minister detailed this plan on NDTV a few days ago. Listen in.
We've seen more direct statements in the recent past from Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the war that's been imposed on Ukraine. Do you believe India's Prime Minister can play a more direct role in reaching out to the Russian leadership to try and end this conflict?
Definitely. India is a very important player on the global arena, and Prime Minister of India, with his voice, can make a change. Indeed, we are looking forward to the moment when Indian foreign policy will call spade a spade and name the conflict not war in Ukraine, but what it is, the Russian aggression against Ukraine. President Zelensky, speaking at the G20 summit on Bali, announced a peace formula that consists of 10 steps and represents an excellent platform for global engagement of countries willing to bring peace back to Ukraine. So India is more than welcome to participate in this implementation, the implementation of this formula, and we will need a strong leadership of your Prime Minister to end the war.
Hi, good morning. Let's get you our top story, which is North India that shivers as Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi are in the grip of cold day and cold wave conditions. Also in parts of Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan, parts of Saurashtra and Kutch also, Priyanshi, where the temperatures are down by almost 4 to 5 degrees.
That's right, Divya. We can feel it in the national capital, even sitting indoors and in our jackets. You can feel it because the temperature is going as low as 5 to 6 degrees Celsius in the national capital, which is well below normal. And this is not just Delhi, but also in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, Uttarakhand and Punjab, all these states witnessing a cold wave condition and also dense fog. Now, the Met Department says that the cold wave conditions might ease in the national capital starting tomorrow, but the fog conditions are likely to continue for the coming few days.
Right, for another 48 hours, Priyanshi, fog conditions will continue for us in the national capital and adjoining areas, but in Punjab, they'll continue for another 3 days. So from now through Friday, we can expect fog conditions in Punjab. Let's just go through some of the temperatures. We have Srinagar at -3.5. Is that normal for this time of the year? Absolutely not. That's 2 degrees below the norm. We have Shimla, 1 degree below the norm at 3.5. 4.5 in Jammu, 4 degrees off the mark. And Delhi at 5 degrees. It's all of 5. It's even colder than what it is in Nainital, Priyanshi, which is coming in at 7.2. And it's not just North India, but here we have Rajkot there at 10.2. That's 4 degrees off the mark.
Right, and in that list of cities, we have Srinagar, which is one of the coldest at -3.5 degrees Celsius. Let's just look at the snowfall in Srinagar. As you can see, the temperature is -3.5 degrees Celsius, which is 2 degrees below normal. You can see that snowfall in Kashmir and Srinagar as the cold wave condition is continuing, and that is impacting the normal people as well. Of course, it looks great for tourism, but the people have to deal with temperatures going as low as -3.5. Nazir joins us from Kashmir. Nazir, what can you tell us about the temperatures there and how people are really coping with it? The plus side could be that tourism might benefit.
Exactly, and Srinagar actually is yet to receive this season's snowfall, and we're waiting. But the high reaches of the valley have received snowfall since last night for the health resorts like Pahalgam and Sunmarg. Good snowfall, and tourists have been enjoying it. Really fun for the tourists. Particularly, we saw the visuals from the Pahalgam where tourists were playing during the night when it was snowing. And good news is it has brought some respite from severe cold in the valley. As you mentioned, -3.5, it is like normal. It was hovering around -6 in Srinagar just a day before, and much more cold in several other parts of the valley. So snowfall brings some respite from severe cold in the valley, and it's a good news for the tourists who have come here to celebrate Christmas and New Year, particularly in places like Pahalgam, where you've seen in the visuals how tourists are enjoying this, celebrating this snow when it is snowing during the early in the morning and last night in Pahalgam.
Nazir, thank you so much for joining us with all those details and visuals coming in from Jammu and Kashmir and Srinagar there waiting for its snowfall. In order to get a sense of when it will start snowing in Srinagar, we have with us GP Sharma of SkyMet. He is the president of Meteorology and Climate Change. We have him joining us, and also on the phone line we have Mahesh Palawat joining us also from SkyMet. First to GP Sharma. Sir, if you can take us through, the temperatures in North India, some of them below normal. Is this a normal winter? How long is it going to last? Especially for people in Srinagar, when is it going to start snowing?
Divya, as far as the temperatures are concerned, these are quite normal at this point of time of the year. Delhi, adjoining areas, entire North India, we experience cold wave conditions. So we have the day temperatures also dipping. The irony is at the moment it's a double whammy that it's a cold wave combined with the cold day conditions also. The Delhi the other day, day before, it was hovering around 16 degree. Yesterday it was further less. It has dropped to about 15.6 degree, which is about 6 degrees below the normal. So this is what is causing a little more problem for the common man, that nights in any case they are cold. For the last 5 nights, persistently it has been hovering around 5 degrees centigrade. It is below normal, but then it's quite normal, as I said, as usual. Like last 3 years, if you take, the temperature had dropped down to about 3 degrees at this point of time. 2019, it was 2.4 degree. So having a temperature.
If we see the trend in the last 24 hours itself, yesterday the minimum touched 5 degrees. Today we're seeing a slight change. It's about 5.6 in the national capital today. So the temperature seems to be inching back up. And according to the Met Office, the temperature will start to increase by almost 2 degrees. And that's what we're expecting over the next 48 to 78 hours.
Yes, you saw in the visual that Pahalgam was snowing, though Srinagar is still in the queue, still waiting. But then Pahalgam having snow means there is a western disturbance. Okay, so whenever the western disturbance is there, you can expect marginal rise in the temperature in the plains because no weather activity has been there in the plains. Delhi last saw a drop of rain was 2.5 months back. 75 days back. After that, it's dry and cold now. So, but then we expect another western disturbance shortly, around 29th or so, 29th, 30th. We'll have more of snowfall in the popular destinations of Pahalgam, Gulmarg. I will not be surprised even if Srinagar also has some snowflakes on that day. That's the 29th and 30th, but it's not going to be very heavy. So
can you take us through the New Year predictions as far as weather is concerned?
Oh, New Year! I'm afraid that it may not be there snowfall, but just prior to the New Year, on 30th or so, resorts like Srinagar they may have a little light snowfall, but then it's not going. After that, it's going to dry up. I feel for the next about 5-7 days or so. So New Year is not going to be snowy in the popular destinations of Shimla, of Srinagar. Yes, Pahalgam and Gulmarg, as I said. 29th, 30th, there could be a spread, could be better, intensity could be more for all these places. But then the New Year looks as if once again giving us a miss on all these places.
Right. So what about the plains? What will the temperature be like, especially in the national capital and adjoining areas? How cold will it get?
See, the national capital, as you said, this morning marginal rise was there, 5.6 as compared to 5 degree of yesterday. But this rise is not good enough to give you any relief on a bigger scale. As such, the day temperatures, as I said, that it again dipped. It is the coldest day of this season at 15.6 in Delhi.
Right.
And I feel that the thick envelope of fog or the layer of fog, column of fog is not going to let the temperature rise once again during the day. So coupled with the day temperature and lower temperatures in the night, it's going to continue. And for the next about 4 days, 3 to 4 days, you can expect marginal rise in the night temperatures. It could possibly climb to even 7 degrees also. Okay, but the day temperature, I feel it's going to hover around that time.
Right. What really makes the world of a difference is how sunny it gets in the day, and which is what we've had up until now. It's only now that we're seeing those fog conditions come about in the national capital. We also have Mahesh Palawat joining us. Mahesh, a quick New Year prediction as far as temperatures are concerned. How low will they go? And also as far as Dibrugarh is concerned, a hailstorm there.
Now temperatures are inching close to normal, or you can say they are rising marginally. But we think that there may be a western disturbance on 30 and 31st of December, leading to snowfall over hills. After the passage of western disturbance, usually northerly winds, the northerly icy cold winds, penetrate up to central parts of the country. So on New Year Eve, the temperatures may again start dropping. So, but there will not be a steep drop on January 1st, while 2nd and 3rd temperatures will again start heading south. And temperatures may be around 5 degree morning temperatures, and by 2nd, 3rd or 4th of January, they may be around between 4 and 5 degrees. So we can say chilly weather will again make a comeback. However, day temperatures will hover around say 17 to 18 degrees Celsius during that time.
Right. Thank you so much, Mahesh Palawat from SkyMet, as well as GP Sharma, for joining us here this morning. And it's not just India and the northern part which is, braving the winter conditions. But what about the situation in the United States?
In the United States, it has created an absolute havoc, Divya. The winter storm that the United States is seeing has killed almost 50 people. Just in New York City's Buffalo, 27 deaths have been linked to the winter storm. Now, New York's governor warned that the danger from this massive blizzard is not over just yet, as the communities in Buffalo in New York City are bracing for as much as an additional foot of snow.
That's right. 49 inches have been reported in Buffalo in the last 24 hours, and officials have blamed the storm for 27 deaths across the western part of New York. And so close to 50 deaths have been reported as far as the storm is concerned in this war with Mother Nature. The extreme weather has forced cancellation of more than 15,000 flights in recent days, including about 2,700 which have been noted in the last 24 hours on Monday itself. In fact, the storm is not over, is what the governor of New Jersey had to say.
And as much as we can see the skies right now, we know that the storm is coming back. We're expecting another 6 to 12 inches. And in the south towns, the southern part of Erie County, a little bit south of here, they had 30 to 40 inches of snow overnight. So anyone who declares victory and says it's over, it is way too early to say this is at its completion of maybe the severity is downplaying now, and right now it's not as bad as it had been over the last couple of days, but it is still a dangerous situation to be out. And that is why the driving bans and county executive and the mayor can address what's going on in their municipalities, but the driving bans that we have here at the state level, the New York State Thruway Authority closed from the Pennsylvania border all the way to Henrietta near Rochester. That is because we still have scores and scores of vehicles that were abandoned when people left during the storm or just in a ditch they can't possibly get out.
Following Friday's bomb cyclone, wind chills are at minus 40 degrees Celsius in some parts of the US, with reports of frozen bodies being found inside cars in the middle of streets and trapped in houses. Over 36 people have died in this massive winter storm that continues to blast much of the US with brutal winter weather. Parts of western New York have been buried by up to 43 inches of snow, leaving vehicles stuck and thousands of homes and businesses without electricity. New York's governor says the situation is still life-threatening.
We're still in the throes of this very dangerous, life-threatening situation. Just because people might see the sky a little bit today, those storms, the wind, the velocity, the volume, it's coming back.
So travelers' weather woes are likely to continue, with hundreds of domestic and international flight cancellations this morning as well. Since the start of the monstrous Arctic storm, the number of outages has at times exceeded 1 million customers. Winter storm warnings remain in effect in New York for Buffalo, as 10 million people are under freeze alerts across the US even today. As per forecasters, a moderating trend should set in on Tuesday. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.
Moving on, India will hold mock drills today to check how well prepared are the health facilities to deal with any spike in COVID cases. Health ministers of all states will be participating in those mock drills, and Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia will be at the Safdarjung Hospital, and that we are expecting him there in half an hour's time from now in order to oversee the mock drill.
Now, Divya, this is just a preparatory move, and India is not currently witnessing any surge in COVID cases. That's what the government has been reiterating, that there is no concern for panic in India just yet, but these moves are just being taken as a mark of caution, as a precautionary measure, just in case there's a surge in India that could happen after that surge that was witnessed in China. Now, what will this mock drill really focus on? It will focus on parameters such as availability of health facilities in all districts, capacity of isolation beds, oxygen supported beds, also ICU, which is the intensive care unit, beds and ventilator supporter beds, and also human resources. Remember, all of these resources were really in scarcity during the second wave when we saw an unprecedented wave of infections. And just to ensure that this time we are better prepared just in case a wave hits us, these mock drills are being conducted. But Divya, it's important to point out here that currently the cases are the lowest that they've been since March to April 2020, so the lowest in 2 years. If we talk about the cases in the last 24 hours, they were 194. The deaths reported are 0, and the total active cases in the country are at 3,428 according to the government's portal.
Right. We also have Shrija joining us. In fact, Shrija, Karnataka has taken the lead in introducing precautionary measures as of Monday by directing the use of masks inside theatres as well as educational institutions.
Well, new guidelines have come in. Of course, on one hand, you have especially a separate COVID advisory and as well as circular, which is issued by the Karnataka government. On the other hand, you have a separate guidelines which has been drafted by the Karnataka government specifically, especially for the new year. Like you pointed out, saying that, yes, the Karnataka government have made masks mandatory, especially in closed and indoor areas. And this is going to be especially in schools and colleges, the classrooms, theatres, and also malls, shopping complexes as well. So more importantly, the Karnataka government has especially asked, the senior citizens, requested senior citizens, pregnant women and also children to ensure, they don't really venture into crowded areas. This is also in the view of where a spike could also be reported. Now, these are recommendations, especially by the, the special task force, and this is to the government, which was placed, and now it's been accepted, and also it's in place and in practice as far as Karnataka goes. And as far, if you remember, how exactly are they planning to implement on ground? Now, that is what remains to be seen. Because if you remember, when there was a spike that was reported, we could see some of the stringent measures being brought in by the Karnataka government. For example, those who are found to not to be wearing masks, now they were fined. So these were certain stringent measures which were brought by the Karnataka government. But now we see that, the government has now listed out these are the certain the guidelines, but that apart, we're also looking at where there's going to be screening of passengers in Bengaluru International Airport. And this is also more importantly to ensure that, if in case some passengers are tested with a new variant, the next immediate measure, what they're going to do is, especially they have designated COVID hospitals. For example, here in Bengaluru, it's the Boring Hospital. So there are designated beds also as far as the government is concerned, especially in government hospitals, and also they've requested especially the private hospitals to ensure they can reserve beds. But if you remember, just about a few months ago, when we did see there was a huge spike in COVID cases, there was a rule that was brought in by the Karnataka government that is especially requesting the private hospitals also to reserve nearly 50% of its beds. But if that is something that's going to be brought back or not, we will have to wait and watch.
We also have Vedanta joining us from the national capital. Vedanta, the Delhi government has approved a budget of 104 crore rupees for hospitals to buy general medicines. Take us through the other, situations that they might want to look into.
That's right, Divya. In fact, we will be bringing you visuals also live from those mock drills in a short while from now. But what are the measures that are being taken, as you asked? So first, of course, is an uninterrupted supply of medical oxygen. That is something that is really the focus of the Union Health Ministry, and that is something that it has directed the states to also ensure that liquid medical oxygen is available at all times. Oxygen plants are functional, and as a backup, at least 5,000 to 6,000 oxygen cylinders are kept, because remember, now beds are directly connected to a central oxygen supply. So that is something that hospitals have to ensure. But just as a backup, an inventory of almost 5,000 to 6,000 oxygen cylinders is also to be maintained. Now that is going to be the focus, because remember, Divya, we saw how that oxygen crisis really unfolded in the past waves as well. So, ensuring an uninterrupted supply of oxygen is the focus of India's COVID response at the moment. The second important thing is maintaining an inventory of antibiotics, COVID-related medicines, general medicines, and all hospitals have been asked to ramp up the stock of all these medicines, in the event of any surge or possible new wave of the coronavirus. The other important thing is that beds earmarked for COVID are also to be increased. Remember, in fact, Manish Sisodia and Arvind Kejriwal had said that beds earmarked for COVID were increased from 8,000 to 36,000. So that is something that is an important part of building up the capacity to fight COVID. So that is something that hospitals will take stock of in the mock drills today. Other than that, oxygen cylinders, as I mentioned, and SpO2 devices, BiPAPs, ventilators, all of that, non-invasive ventilators, all of that is something that hospitals will take stock of today. In fact, Manish Sisodia himself will be visiting Delhi's LNJP hospital. Remember, he also has a health portfolio, and Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia will be at Delhi's Safdarjung hospital at 9:45 today. Divya.
Right, and Vedant, if we talk about these mock drills, we saw that these were the resources that you just talked about. These were in scarcity during the second wave. So these are just precautionary measures to highlight, right? There's no surge of cases that are being witnessed in Delhi or in the country at large?
Well, absolutely, Priyanshi. But as far as these mock drills are concerned, so we will see that it will be a situation where doctors will be in PPE kits. They will be, assessing the situation, basically taking stock of, all the equipment and infrastructure. So as you rightly mentioned, the positivity rate in India is also considerably low, and in fact, cases are also not on the rise. So of course, the government has also been reiterating that this is just a marker for caution and not a cause for panic. But these mock drills are being done so as to stay ahead of the COVID curve. That is India's bid at the moment. And this is, of course, amid the rise in cases across the world, particularly in China and Japan. So these are just precautionary measures. But of course, India's COVID infrastructure is something that the government is taking very seriously. Genome sequencing has also been ramped up. But as you rightly mentioned, at the outset, these are just precautionary measures. And the government says that it's working on war footing to make sure that India is ready to take on a possible new wave of the coronavirus.
Right. Thank you so much, Vedanta, for joining us with all those details. And here, India is prepping for a possible surge. And there we have China, where there is a surge and they're easing off on their curbs.
That's what reports suggest, that China is easing curbs, lifting quarantine rules for inbound travelers. We'll tell you all the curbs that might be lifted in China and all those details on the other side. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Now, China, amid its surge as far as COVID cases are concerned, has decided to ease COVID curbs. China on Monday said that it would scrap the mandatory quarantine on arrival and further unwinding years of strict virus controls as the country battles a surge in cases. Having mostly cut itself off from the rest of the world during the pandemic, China is now experiencing an unprecedented surge in infections after abruptly lifting restrictions that torpedoed the economy and sparked nationwide protests.
Right, so multiple reports now suggesting that China is now lifting those COVID norms, even though cases are still really high. Now, to get more details on this and understand what are these curbs that are being lifted, we're joined by a Chinese reporter from CGTN, Yunfei. Thanks very much for joining us. If you could first take us through the curbs that the Chinese government is lifting now, despite a rapid surge of COVID-19 cases.
Well, it's an entire process. Thank you for having me again. I can still remember the first time I was on NDTV was really 3 years ago when I was reporting in Wuhan. The city first reported the cases, and back then the situation was very severe. And when we come to this point, with the mutation has been rapidly changing from the Alpha all the way to Omicron, the evaluation by the Chinese health officials saying that the Omicron variant is no longer threatening and it won't cause a deadly impact on the people. So that's why the country is swifting its policy on the COVID-19 control and prevention.
Right. If you can take us through the situation at hand as to the numbers, that are being reported daily, the kind of deaths that are being reported. Also, they have started to now lift the curbs. So take us through those curbs, those restrictions that were in place for 3 years are now being lifted, including no longer the passengers coming into China will have to quarantine as far as the COVID situation is concerned.
I wouldn't say that it's lifting something. It's not a process of lifting the restriction. I would say that this is adjustment of the policies, because previously, including the massive lockdown of the city, including the quarantine measures conducted by the health officials, all the measures are there to contain the spread, to curb the spread of the virus. And back then, when we talk about the Alpha variant, the Delta variant, both of the variants are very deadly virus back then. So if we let it go, and it will cause huge damage to the society. And now when it comes to Omicron variant, the evaluations is that it's no longer pneumonia anymore. The death rate has been lowered, and that's why it's been adjusting the measures. And it's still an epidemic. I mean, people are still evaluating this is something that caused infection. So China is still taking measures to make sure that to protect the health and safety of the people.
Right. Of course, as you mentioned, that China is taking measures just to adjust to the COVID cases, but not entirely lifting these norms. So are you saying that the zero COVID policy, of course, was not in place as those measures were lifted? So what are the relaxations? Are there any relaxations, or does the condition stand the same, as you're saying that they're just adjusting and not really lifting any norms?
I would say that back then, the zero COVID policy you mentioned about is actually the dynamic zero COVID policy. And all the reason behind that is that the health officials is trying to curb the number of cases. So they call it dynamic zero COVID policy. It's not an absolute zero COVID policy. So it's a narrative thing. And on the other hand, you're talking about the relaxation of the policy. There are many perspectives. People entering places, let's say shopping malls and airports and many public areas. They no longer need to scan code to track their health situation. And there's a more convenient for people to travel throughout the country, as well as we're expecting the early January, people will be able to have more flexibility in travel internationally.
Right, and we were also seeing those reports of massive surge of cases and deaths in China, but the official figures definitely were not reflecting the same. If you could take us through the actual number of infections that you're picking up from China, how rampant is the surge at a time when these curbs are reportedly being lifted?
Well, it's the adjustment of the policy. It's really not easy to keep track of the exact number of infections, because there are so many people got infected and they stayed at home. So it's not possible for them to, let's say, report their health conditions to the officials. So it's not easy for the officials to get the exact number of the infection cases. That's why the local health authorities no longer release the official data, because the number would not present the accurate people who got infected. There are certain a level degree of infections across the nation. There are many friends around us get infected. But remember, this is something that happened to all around the world. If you see the countries that relaxed their policies earlier in the years, let's say earlier in 2020 or 2021, the death rate will be much higher, because remember, those variants are way more threatening.
Well, according to prediction, the outbreak is expected to reach its peak in the month of January, given that, it took a lot of protests in China for that zero policy to be lifted, and, these easing of the norms to come about. We're now also hearing that there will be no demarcation as far as high-risk areas are concerned in China.
Absolutely. So, again, because people are adjusting their views on these kind of the virus, the official health officials have been downgrading the category of the virus, and downgrading the potential threatness of the virus. That's why there's not a reason for the local authorities to identify this is the high risk area and that is the low risk area, because they don't want to give the local health officials an excuse to lock down the city or lock down the neighborhoods, and that will brought inconvenience to the local people. That's why they ignore the policy of marking the place of high risk area or the low risk area. The overall idea for that is to bring more convenience for the people, so that people can hop onto a new level of health working and living experience in the post-pandemic era.
Right. And Yunfei, if we can also get an idea of how China is coping with it. We saw reports of the health infrastructure being overburdened, 30 days of waiting at crematoria. Does the situation still stand, or what are you picking up on how the health infrastructure is being able to deal with this COVID surge?
Well, China has always been adjusting the health policies, as well as China has been handing out the handbooks and guidelines for epidemic prevention and control. It has been revising into 9 editions based on the change of the strain of the virus. And also talking about the infrastructure of health. I mean, over the past 3 years, China has been really boosting the ICU capacity, including the number of beds as well as ICU doctors. So the capacity of medicine, the capacity and testing speed of the PCR test and antigen test has always been boosting. So it really, over the past years, I would say that the country really learned from the epidemic and increased its reserves in health sectors.
Right. From one extreme to the other, as even the cases are going unreported, so are the deaths. But that is the extreme case that is, in fact, being taken by China, and now they're not even demarcating as far as high-risk areas are concerned. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV this morning.
Welcome back. 7 accused have been arrested after they killed a BSF soldier as he went to their home after one of the accused, Shailesh Jadhav, made a video of the victim's daughter, and it went viral in the Chaklasi village in Nadiad on December 24th. Now, about this case, the Border Security Force Jawan was beaten to death in Gujarat's Nadiad after he protested against the circulation of an obscene video of his 15-year-old daughter. Neeta Sharma joining us for more details on this. Neeta, tell us about this entire case, and now that 7 accused have been arrested.
Absolutely. It's a very horrifying incident. The BSF Jawan, he in fact died on the spot. He was allegedly attacked with sticks and sharp weapons by the youth's family who had, made a video on December 24th. Now, the Gujarat police claims that 7 people have been arrested, including 2 women, on the charges of murder and rioting, and have been sent to judicial custody. An FIR has also been registered. There was this video clip which was going viral. It is being alleged in that video clip, BSF Jawan's daughter could be seen. So, to protest about that video clip as to how it went viral, he went to the accused house. There he was attacked by the accused family and his family members. He died on the spot. In fact, his son also sustained injuries, and he is now presently in a hospital where he is recuperating. The FIR was lodged by BSF's Jawan's wife. Investigation is going on. However, now the latest is that the 7 people have been arrested in the case as claimed by the Gujarat police.
That's right. Right, Neeta, as you were mentioning, 7 people have been arrested. Let's listen in to what the DSP of Nadiad in Gujarat said on this.
चकलासी थाने में एक कंप्लेंट दर्ज की गई है आईपीसी सेक्शन 302, 307, 323, 504, 143, 147, 148, 149 के तहत कंप्लेंट रजिस्टर करके पुलिस ने तहकीकात आरंभ की है। तहकीकात थाना इंचार्ज चकलासी पीएसआई कर रहे हैं और इस सिलसिले में एफएसएल फिंगरप्रिंट एक्सपर्ट वगैरह की भी मदद ली गई है और साथ में ही पुलिस ने इस काम में जो अक्यूज थे, सारे अक्यूज, 7 अक्यूज को पुलिस ने अरेस्ट कर लिया है।
Now, unfortunately, there's more pain for the common man's pockets. Prices for Mother Dairy milk in Delhi have been hiked by 2 rupees per litre. The full cream milk was earlier available at 64 rupees per litre, but starting today, it will be available at 66 rupees per litre. Now, this is the 5th milk price hike that Mother Dairy has announced just this year. The earlier revisions were done in March, August, October and November, and now the 5th one in December. Now, why is this really happening? Mother Dairy said that the hike in prices was due to the company's increased procurement cost of raw milk from dairy prices. They said that milk procurement prices are up by 24% in just a matter of a year.